I have been accused of being dangerous, spreading misinformation, and being mentally unstable because of these videos. Some of the people commenting on either LinkedIn or YouTube have been putting forth claims such as these, ignoring the fact of that these are ad hominem arguments. Let's summarize my arguments and use the scientific method to invalidate or validate them. So one of my arguments, which created the most negative comments, was that having a higher education, a university degree in software development is completely useless. Another argument that also generated quite a big fuss was that teamwork is stupid when it comes to software development, and you're better off implementing everything alone, solo developer. Another argument is that you shouldn't always use Git on code. Just because it's code doesn't necessarily imply that it belongs in a GitHub or in a Git repository. Another argument is that CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment, is a financial scam implemented by cloud service providers in cahoots with DevOps engineers and similar types of roles to basically scam you for more money. Then I've had other arguments such that OOP is psychiatric mass psychosis and doesn't belong in modern software development whatsoever, etc., etc. There is no way for me to prove my arguments without showing my own stuff. So let's look at what I created. This is Magic Cloud. It is a low-code and no-code software development platform. It's even got an integrated chatbot you can use to ask for help whenever you are stuck with one particular thing you need to do. You can click the question mark here, come to the documentation, at which point you have another chatbot you can ask for help. Everything you see now is actually created in Magic using low-code and no-code software development automation constructs. It's got SQL Studio, allowing me to visually design my database, and it works with SQL Server, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and SQLite. And I can also run queries like this from. It helps writing accurate SQL. And it has an endpoint generator allowing me to automatically wrap my database inside of CRUD HTTP endpoint. It's got its own IDE, integrated development environment, allowing me to edit code. I had to invent my own programming language called HyperLambda, which is a low-code, no-code software development orchestration programming language based upon metaprogramming and declarative programming constructs. It doesn't have any OOP at all. It's got a chatbot wizard where I can generate a chatbot in some few minutes by crawling and scraping websites. I implemented the website scraper entirely from scratch because I needed something that could convert HTML into Markdown while preserving things such as images and hyperlinks, etc. And it has its own RBAC-based access control system. RBAC meaning role-based access control. It has the ability to connect to external databases and or manage internally deployed SQLite databases. It's got an endpoint module allowing me to invoke my endpoints. If I now invoke this guy, let's try it out, see what it does. Then it returns this data. It's got a task manager while we're talking about Git for the record. Now, why would I want to use Git? This is code, right? Why would I want to use Git on it? Adding Git to this specific component does absolutely nothing. This task is serialized in my database, and I can write any hyperlambda I wish, which ends up being code that I can schedule here, according to either a repetition or invoke one specific point in time in the future. It's got hyperlambda playground, another example of where Git is basically completely useless. Now, if I execute this, okay, it didn't find Barnabas. Let's just do modules. Then it's basically counting the lines of code and the number of files. And it's a snippet, it's a throwaway snippet that I can load and save on the fly. Why would I want to use Git on this, right? I mean, these are throwaway snippets that I use to administer individual cloudlets or perform some sort of like tasks. It's got its own plugin-based system. For instance, if you filter on AI expert system and you install that, what you're actually getting is this thing. And let's try this thing while we're at it. This thing is built in Angular and it's a front end. Now, if I choose ChatGPT search here, search the web for Thomas Hansen hyperlambda and create a short summary. Now, what this AI LLM, AI agent is now actually doing, it's searching for Thomas Hansen hyperlambda using DuckDuckGo. Then it finds the most relevant articles returned by DuckDuckGo. It scrapes these articles. This time it scraped 3 articles. Then it transmits the content as Markdown after having converted it from HTML to Markdown to OpenAI. And it asks OpenAI to answer my original question, which was, of course, create a summary. Thomas Hansen is associated with Hyperlambda, a unique programming language that challenges traditional programming paradigms. Hyperlambda is blah, 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 etc., etc. In addition, it's got the ability to edit training data, RAG data. I can choose, for instance, one individual type here. I can add an AI function as a plugin, scrape hyperlinks. Let's see if we can find something. Okay, send email. Now I click install on this guy, I click save, and I re-vectorize my model and create new embeddings, and boom, that this particular model has the ability to now send emails. I'm not going to actually implement it because it's a publicly available AI chatbot, and I don't want public users to be able to spam any random dude. It's got its own integrated audit log, and it's got a profile. It's got multiple themes, default, and neumorphism. And the front end is a multi-tenant admin front end, allowing me to manage multiple cloudlets. The thing is deployed inside of a Kubernetes cluster. Each individual cloudlet is actually a Kubernetes pod with its own private file system and its own private database. The documentation alone consists of hundreds of pages, and it's got a KPI dashboard. The system I just showed you was implemented by one developer, me. It's got 8,600 commits. I obviously do not use Git, neither for scheduled tasks nor for Hyperlambda playground snippets. And because of that, I have a CRUD endpoint generator that allows me to generate 1 million lines of code per second. I obviously also don't use Git for that automatically generated code. The system doesn't have any CI/CD. I can create releases automatically by creating a new tag in GitHub. But most of the client code I produce, I don't need CI/CD for. Because most of the client code is so rapidly created that adding CI and CD to it simply becomes overhead. I spend more time creating the pipeline than whatever amount of time I'm saving because of having pipelines and workflows. I didn't have a team. I implemented the entirety of the system myself. I had one developer helping me out with the front end for a period of a couple of months, but 99.5% of the commits to this system are conducted by me. Now, I could go through every single counter argument to my argument and simply point at this video with the comment, the proof is in the pudding. Because I follow every single one of my practices myself when I deliver software, and I delivered that thing, which with 99% statistical probability is a way more complex project than anything, at least 99% of my viewers have ever done themselves using legacy best practices. So facts are that I am living proof of that software development best practices are rubbish. Now, I refer to my way of creating software as anarchy software development. To understand that word, we need to look at the original meaning of the word anarchy. And the word anarchy is actually not one word, it's two words. There are two Greek words. An meaning without. Archy meaning leaders. And ideas and axioms and paradigms can be leaders too. And at the end of the day, if you want to give my way of creating software development a name, then its name should probably be whatever fucking works. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. I got 9 years of formal education.